Hi Lee. What's your thoughts on where Bristol City are currently in the table and form-wise, and after the draw at the weekend?
Yeah. I feel positive, I have to say. I feel like we've got a bit of our mojo back in terms of like the blend and the balance. It's good to have players coming back to fitness. I think there was a lot of elements of the performance, particularly watching it back, because after the game, like, it's mixed emotions. The boys have played well, been a part of a good, entertaining game, but at the same point, you want to get 3 points. So, having reviewed the performance, there was so much good stuff in it, and a real platform to be able to build on that performance. Now, if we're saying that at the start of the season, obviously that's fantastic. We're saying it at the end of the season, and that's a little bit circumstantial with where we've got to and how we've got to that. And that's the bit that I'm encouraged about, that a lot of new partnerships are on the pitch, which you wouldn't expect with 9 games to go towards the end of the season. But we've managed to put in a positive display against, effectively, the Galacticos of the division.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously there's no wins in 5, but it was a better performance at the weekend. You kind of alluded to it there, but do you think or accept that maybe the new signings made in January, and if you include Jamie Patterson as well, there's almost 4 new players coming in.
And Zach Viner.
Yeah, Zach Viner, yeah, indeed. And Josh Brownhill going out. Do you think that's kind of upset the apple cart a little bit? You said there about partnerships.
No, I think that each situation has to be taken on its merits. I think that Naki Wells has done really well. I think he's come in, he's really tried to implement our style. He scored a couple of goals. He's had some good chances as well along the way when we haven't, in a moment where we haven't provided as many chances. I think Brownhill's a big loss, and I'm not going to hide away from that. I think you take such a cog, and in particular a Lee Johnson identity cog, if you like, out of the wheel. I think that isn't easy to find the replacement for. But at the same time, that's my job. My job is to then work as best as I can with what we've got, and that's why I've been pleased after the really poor performance in the first half at Huddersfield away to what we've got to. There's different circumstances in there. Benkovic having a calf strain and playing through it and not being quite right. Like some players maybe not taking to it as quickly as we would like. But in principle, we are where we are with 9 games to go, and in a positive frame of mind that we can go and be successful.
You mentioned the word identity there. I get a lot of the fans asking me what you mean when you say identity. I probably should have asked you 3 years ago, really. But can you explain exactly what your identity is, and in terms of what you want to see on the pitch, clearly?
Well, if I had the opportunity to build like a fantasy football team, for example, there's 2 parts to it really. One is the mathematics of creating overloads, right, through systems and patterns of play. The other part to it is having the 3 attributes that I want from an individual, which is, do you want the ball, can you handle the ball, and can you win it back? So in an ideal world, you'd have a team of 6'2"ers that can handle the ball, win it back, and obviously do something with the ball when they get it, and want it all the time. So often where we are in the food chain, you might get various forms of that. You might get Jada Silva that wants the ball, can handle the ball, can win it back, but is 5'3", or you might get a taller player. So you're constantly trying to put this sort of jigsaw Rubik's cube together, but certainly creating numerical advantages all over the pitch. Like if you look at Josh Brownhill, for example, the way he's been developed into that Premier League player, or Bobby Reid or Joe Bryan, it's built around getting them good ball with space, which makes them look better players and obviously be able to produce more. And that a lot of that it wouldn't necessarily be seen through the naked eye. And the genius of the lads creating ground, creating space. It's obviously a lot easier if you've got a talented defender that can carry the ball wherever that is. because naturally they exploit those overloads that have been created. And then the patterns of play side of it is an organisation in possession, and obviously out of possession it's important that everybody has clarity and that repetition that goes with the training, and then are good enough to execute at this level and where we want to be. So I feel like we've had to definitely, like in the 4 years, create 4 or 5 different teams. And I think, like, we go back, I think there was a piece in The Guardian today that I'd done an interview, and if you look at the Sheffield United example, where they've steadily built on the same performance for whatever reason, they've done it extremely well. And that from a coaching point of view and an actual team point of view is the best way to achieve consistent performances. And a lot of young players that we have naturally show inconsistencies, but are extremely talented, and I think you're due to speak to one very shortly.
Yeah, the guys who came in January then, do they need to be taught about that kind of stuff? Or
Of course they do.
I mean, maybe you recruit them knowing that maybe they already play to a certain way or can.
Yeah, it's all part of it. Of course, that you want the DNA, and people don't like that word, and fans don't like that word, but it is true of the position to tick all the boxes. You know what I mean? And again, you look at somebody like Van Dijk, who if you was to write down the perfect centre half, he has 99% of the attributes towards that. So we have to give and take on certain attributes. We have to blend certain attributes, and that's fine. But definitely a consistency is what you're after, because you're after a consistency of terminology, of methodology, of the way you coach, of the cohesion between the partnerships and the individual. And by the way, that's no different in any organisation and workplace. You yourself work in the media. Day one you come in, it takes you time to settle down. Suddenly you settle down, you understand how your colleagues work, you understand how the organisation, the corporation puts things together, and therefore you become more successful as time goes on in your particular role. So I don't think that's any different to a footballer, and apart from, as a footballer, you're probably being judged every 3 days on how you fit into that organisation, and sometimes it's unfair to bring players in and expect them to hit the ground running without a good set of pre-season games and 8 weeks in pre-season to be able to blend them in. So we've got to do both, and we're in a position, we're not victimising where we are, quite the opposite. We're saying we're in a great position, let's be really positive. We know we've got talent in the squad, we know we've got good players. Yes, it's going to be a challenge to make it cohesive, but we've already shown in the last game against Millwall that it was very cohesive off the ball, which is important, and then against Fulham it was cohesive off the ball and it was cohesive on the ball, and if we can keep building on that, then all the better.
Yeah, after that Millwall game, you said that there might be enough to write 3 books on what had happened, essentially, in terms of affecting your team selections. Can you give the fans a bit of an insight into that at all? Is there anything you can? Yeah,
well, I'm always honest, aren't I? I think that's sometimes the problem. And the truth is, you can go back to the summer. Like was you expecting probably the summer that when I wrote down a team when I was laying on a sunbed in Dubai is extremely different to what it is now. It's not a problem. Football evolves. You lose players for various reasons. You lose players for injury. You lose players through player sales. And sometimes you lose players through form. On the flip side of that creates a positive, because you can have a young player come through that does extremely well. You can sign a new player that fits into the team well. And then you've got off the pitch, if that goes well, some have been in any, again, group of 50, 100 people, you're going to have issues off the pitch, whether that be in private life, injury, medical, whatever. And some have been publicised and some haven't. And it's my job to be that shield, if you like, to protect people, to protect individuals. And it should never come out. What can go on in any, like I say, organisation, removing it away from football and from Bristol City. So, I think that we've got a talented squad. I think that, again, if the season started today, every one of our squad was fit. We're in a really good position to be successful. For whatever reason, throughout certain points of the season, we haven't quite had our full strength. But hopefully, in these last 9 games, we will be as close as we can be to barring Benwick, if you like, to having that full strength.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how is the squad looking at the moment for Blackburn at the weekend?
It's looking good, yeah. Obviously, Bentley is one that is still a 50-50 shot, really, for that one, and Benwick's out. But Adam's back in training and looks okay. I think that's a good example. If you're talking like Adam comes in, looks like one of the best midfielder in the division on his home debut, gets injured, bang, goes away, setback, another setback, 2 big illnesses later. Do you know what I mean? Hasn't had that. This is a top player that we've signed as a full international to go and really be a part of our short-term and long-term future. And for whatever reason, Adam hasn't been able to hit his max due to circumstance rather than his own poor form, for example.
Is his ankle still hurting him, or is he...
It's better. It is better. It's still an underlying issue, but it's certainly better. I don't think that's a... I don't feel like he's going to need an operation, and there's been no talk of that. So I think he's in a good place in terms of his mobility and agility, for sure.
Is there any chance that Kasey Palmer could be involved again towards the end of the season? I know I've asked you this before, but before the weekend, obviously, there seemed to be a bit of a lack of spark or creativity about the team, and obviously Kasey Palmer on the sidelines, a very creative player. I think a lot of fans would recognise. What's going on there? Could he get back into the side?
Yeah, without question of a doubt. I think in the last 2 weeks, it's probably been the best he's trained since he's been here. And if I could give him a pill, a limitless pill, if you like, and say, right, lock that in, he's definitely very close to getting on the pitch. I think, again, being honest, and I've had this conversation with Kasey, so it's not a case of... It's that trust. If listen, I'm the one that's paid to pick a team, if you like, and with Kasey, if your life depended on scoring a goal, without question of a doubt, you'd probably have Kasey in the team, because you know he's got that ability to pick a pass. You know he's physically good. He can score a goal himself. Off the ball, he's still got work to do, and sometimes, if you've got the perfect blend, and when we had the experience of Benwick and around him and Vyman one side and O'Dowda, do you know what I mean? That is different towards the blend. It can accentuate Kasey's strengths and obviously hide his weaknesses. But for whatever reason, maybe we haven't been able to have that, or Kasey's form hasn't been good enough for me to select him enough. But it doesn't mean I don't believe in Kasey Palmer. Absolutely 100% I believe in Kasey Palmer, and I'm desperate for him to do well. He's still a young player, and he is a young player as well, not just in age, but you know what I mean, there's still a bit of maturation there on and off the pitch to come, but an extremely talented kid, and one that we believe can have a big impact at the football club moving forward. And every fan will have, and every player will have an argument. But we're not bottom of the league. Do you know what I mean? We're fighting for a playoff spot, 1 point off the playoffs, and there's been a lot of successes this year, and particularly with what's gone on, for these players to continue to be fighting and performing is credit to them.
Just sticking with the attacking midfielders, I wanted to pick you up on what you said about Liam Walsh at the weekend, obviously having a great season with Coventry. I think he got another Man of the Match award at the weekend. I think he's only got 1 year left to go on his contract though in the summer. Is that something the club needs to urgently address? Are you confident that you can lock him down for longer, or is there decisions to be made there from both sides?
Well, there's always decisions to be made both sides. It's not something that we've talked about yet, because obviously we've got that security of the extra year, and all I would say is communication is right from the start has stayed really strong with Walshy. Walsh is a fantastic talent. He's a rogue, and he's a lovable rogue on and off the pitch, if you know what I mean. And I think that when he doesn't play, he gets frustrated. Now, if you think about the type of player that we signed, and Handara again that you're talking about, and Liam, fantastically talented player, but in my opinion, until you've had 100 league games, you haven't really arrived, and you haven't gone through everything that you need to go through. Now, ideally, Liam would have had 100 league games with us. But if Liam was going to sit on the bench or come on for 20 minutes or half hour or whatever at this stage of his career, it didn't feel right for Liam Walsh or for Bristol City. So Liam will tell you this. My communication from the starting point has been that he needed, because what I see as a coach and as a developer in his game, and the strengths and the weaknesses in his game can be ironed out by 40 games at league level on the spin. So whether that's at Bristol City or Coventry, that will get him, in my opinion, championship ready to be a consistent starter week in, week out. And then of course it's up to him in terms of form and fitness and everything that goes along with that. So again, constant communication has been there with Walshy on that one, and it's worked, I think, well for all parties.
Yeah, just finally for myself, on that same theme, Lee, how big a gap do you see between League One and the Championship? Because I think Matty Taylor's just been nominated for February Player of the Month, and he's now hit 13 goals at League One level this season. He's one of the top scorers in League One, but obviously he doesn't seem to have a future here because he's out of contract, I think, in the summer. And on the other end of the scale, we saw Antoine Semenyo playing against Bristol Rovers last night. I think that might have been only his first start for Sunderland. We're up there. How big a gap is there between League One and Championship, or making it at Bristol City and the guys doing it?
It's $1 million question, really, because I personally believe there is a big jump, but I also believe that the way we work here, and this is not me making myself look good because it's a collective, I would say almost every player has got better. So whether they've played or not played, like whether they've come in from League Two and gone back to League One, whether they've had no games, a load of games, I think probably bar two, since I've been here, have improved their game and their individual. So like whether that, I'll give you an example, Gustav Engvall. So Gustav Engvall statistically was ranked 15 in the league he was in, came to Bristol City, didn't play, went back to the same league, was ranked 1. Liam Walsh is ranked 1 for our statistics in League One for what we've got, and I think Joe Morel is 3, for example. So there's 2 players from midfield that are our players anyway, that we would be looking at to potentially buy next year that are already ours. But in the team, you've currently got Corey Smith, obviously, back. You've got Hungarian international. You've got French under-19 international. Do you know what I mean? You've got Marcus Henderson, obviously, to give us a different profile to any of those players, what we've got in terms of physicality and height. So, like, plus, behind that, we've got unbelievable quality in a player called James Morton, that you may or may not know. We've got players like Zach Smith, that we've got a conveyor belt, really.
As well.
Who? Yeah, Eamon Benarous, yeah. So we've got players like that. We've got a lad called Marley Francois that's up there and has trained with us. So, like, I don't like to effectively name names because we've got a lot of good players in that academy, but that production line is very important. But also, it should be difficult. It should be difficult to get in Bristol City's team. It's the same with West Brom or Leeds, or look at Shackleton at Leeds. Good player, very, very good player. Can't get in because Leeds are flying and they're going probably into the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? So, like, each circumstance has to be taken on its merits, and I think sometimes we pick the bones out of every decision in a negative way rather than a positive. And for this club to be sustainable, I'm not saying you're doing that, but if this club's to be sustainable, it's going to need it all, because it's expensive to run a football club. So it's going to need trades. It's going to need to be successful out there on the pitch, because we need whatever it was, 25,000 crowd every week. it's going to need to produce young players, not only for the team, but if they're not good enough for Bristol City, that Bristol City hold a value in that player moving forward. Wes Burns is an example. So Wes Burns gets sold for X amount, nearly moves in one window, we get a percentage of that move. So if there's 20, 30, 40 players like that, it's only because the system and the people within that system and the collective is making it work. And of course the players' attitude's got to be right. We are producing more players than ever, this football club, by a country mile. More league players. In 10 years' time, people will look back at this era and go, oh my God, look how many players came through that Bristol City.
Why is that?
League players. Because we're doing the right things. It's as simple as that, because there's good people at the football club and we're doing the right things. And the culture's good. It'll get even better when the training ground's done, because that gives me and my staff an opportunity to start drip feeding into 15, 16-year-olds to get them ready. And you might get a Bellingham. For me, there's a great chance of like a Bellingham coming through at this type club, because like I said, we just name-checked two there, Eamon Benarous and Marley Francois, that have trained with us and not looked out of place in the first team. So like with a training ground and 16-year-olds on site learning from the senior players, being pulled up into first team sessions, that's only going to accelerate it. Coaches understanding the methodology of the first team, sessions being designed that are similar, built around, whereas on a split site, naturally it's a little bit difficult and there's a bit more integration time before you become a Bristol City first team player.
Thank you.
Just to pivot to the playoff picture, if you like, as you kind of see it at the moment, is it one place left?
Nah, no chance. What, with 27 points available?
I'll just repeat,
Yeah, no way. No. You don't give up on anything. We fight tooth and nail for every single point. Simple as that. And nothing's done. Like apart from we're safe. If you want to look at it like that. And
do you have a total, do you think we'll get there?
I'm not even thinking like that, to be honest, because I think that, I've been a part of the Championship when I was a young player, come through at Watford. I think Watford were like 16th, 110 on the spin. Ended up getting into the Premier League through going all the way through. So in this league, anything's open and anything's possible. All we've got to do is concentrate on what we can do. And certainly the short term of that is do our very best to get the process right to win on Saturday.
Is there anything you're doing this year that you weren't doing last year that you think will put you in better stead?
Yeah, I think we're better. I think we're better in terms of like behind the scenes. I think we're better in terms of individuals. I think we've got a majority of options. Like we may have lost some very good players, and naturally you could probably build a promotion side with players that we've sold. But that's not, again, me victimising it. That's me saying, right, come on then, let's go again. Do you know what I mean? Let's look forward. And I know, like, this vibe is, we win Saturday, and, like, it's going to be an unbelievable vibe for the next win. And then the next win. And what you've got to do is you've got to build momentum. And the only way you're going to do that is by building momentum in the performances that then lead to, obviously, momentum in results.
And that's why the point, although it was a point, obviously the performance was almost as important.
Yeah, I think again in the circumstance, yeah. If you're playing bottom of the league at home, then maybe not. Do you know what I mean? But you're not. You're playing the Galacticos, like I said, with 100 million start and top players for the division, and we could have won, and we performed to where we want to be, if you like, for what we've got. And then the challenge is to do that against the sides that are not the top three, that we haven't got left to play.
Thomas was really good on Saturday. Was it best performance of the season, do you think?
Yeah, my view on Thomas has just been extremely unlucky this year. Like, you know, in terms of his tendinitis on his knee, causing him aggravation from the start of the year. We didn't have Thomas probably till 2 games before the whole game, of which he was outstanding. And then the whole game he gets injured with his hamstring, comes back bitty, and the last 2 games I think he's been right back at where we expect Thomas to be. And you cannot underestimate how important that is. to have your best at their best. So for whatever reason, if you've got your best at their best, and he is, then you got a right chance in this division. And you can almost see like various clubs over there, top or bottom of the league, doesn't matter. Your best are at their best, you pick up points. If they're not, you lose games quickly. And the bigger clubs can see it through because their second best is still very, very good for the division, and they don't lose a big percentage of quality from the overall sum of parts in that 11 or 14.
Sounds like a stupid question, but what does, when he's at his best, what does he bring to the defence?
Well, he brings that like security in defence. He makes everybody feel better because he's so quick to read situations. He's so athletic. Like he can put out fires often before they've started to come to the fore because of his positioning, and like he's competent and good on the ball. But obviously, it's his sweep up play, his reading of the game, his athleticism, his dominance in winning the first ball for his size, which is top notch, and he allows us to play higher up the pitch. And that's the key, because if you want to, again, come back to this Lee Johnson identity, in an ideal world, you'd have the quickest back four in Europe, because the quickest back four in Europe means that you can go and press as high as possible, and that's part of where we'd like to get to. But you can't always do that because circumstantially.
Where does he fit in the leadership group, or the new leadership group, I guess it is?
Yeah, I think he's more of like a leader by example, to be honest, Thomas. Like he's very professional. Like he's dry, as you'd have heard from his interviews and stuff like that. But everybody loves him, and I think that it's almost like The Blind Side, you know, that film where there's like, if there's a percentage for protection, his is like 98%. You know what I mean? He wants to protect people around him, and that comes across in his game and the way he plays. So I think that he's a fantastic player. I'm very happy that he's at his best, although I'm disappointed that we haven't had as much of him as we would have liked, and there'd be no one more disappointed than him. So again, it's a positive that he's in a good place going into the last 9 games.
And the midfield, there seems to be a more greater security. I mean, I don't know if that's an effect of Thomas being there at his best as well, but there was greater midfield security against, I don't know, Fulham, the best midfield in the Championship. It's got to be up there.
Yeah, and I think that comes from an energy, doesn't it? That comes from a busyness, a work rate, an understanding. And Corey Smith's worked with me for 4 years. Do you know what I mean? He's like having me on the pitch. It's like Pack or Brown. Do you know what I mean? That these players, Smith, Vyman, Brownhill, Pack, like Callas, like they've worked with me enough now that they know absolutely everything, and that makes others better. When you've got that on the pitch, communication, organisation, understanding, it's going to make somebody else better next to him. And like again, losing Corey for the 3 games before that one, you see a big change. It's a big change in the team dynamic, and it'd be no different if you pulled your boss out of your organisation, if you like, because it's going to take time to get it back in the flow.
Just finally on Corey contract, has there been any development on that?
To be honest, I think we've all got to the point now on all the contracts really where we're saying, right, let's focus on the football now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like nothing's going to change between now and the end of the season. Per se, I wouldn't expect there to be any announcements on any player between now and the end of the season. And then of course you assess what division you're in, you know what I mean, what the needs are, and but obviously Corey, the biggest thing for him is to stay fit, you know what I mean, stay in the team, stay fit, and then puts him in a great position in any which way.
Good stuff. Thanks for your time, Nick.
Cheers, Lee. Good luck to the weekend.
Okay, thank you.